Thanks for joining me in this video today. We are talking about frequency coordination, and I have a special guest, Gary Stigall. And Gary has been involved with frequency coordination in Southern California for, a good amount of time. And I have the privilege of chatting with him, and I have him on right now. In fact, I need to put headphones on so I can hear what he has to say. So, Gary, hi. Thanks for being a part of this channel, and welcome. Thanks for chatting with me.
Hope I can answer any questions you have.
Well, we're going to talk about frequency coordination and why and how and who uses frequency coordination, and kind of go into some of the details about it. It's kind of one of those weird things that you don't really think about,
right?
Unless you've run into problems with it before.
Exactly.
So, why would you think about coordinating your STL? I'm just going from down here up to a point up on top of a mountain. I don't need to coordinate with anyone else, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I've done event coordination since 2012. And in fact, I do a little bit of it still in San Diego at Snapdragon Stadium. I have a couple of partners who take most of the events, but I oversee that. I did 12 seasons with the NFL, including 8 Super Bowls, and then also helped out with Major League Baseball at the World Series and some college football championships. But yeah, why can't I just show up at a stadium, for example, and start transmitting after I find an open frequency? Well, the problem with that, of course, is maybe it was an open frequency when you arrived, but as soon as people show up, you may have police, fire using that channel. You may have the local stadium using that channel, or a network. And it's very typical at a place like Los Angeles that uses a lot of TV channels for their own intercommunications to show up and start using one of those channels that you believed was empty. For example, in Los Angeles, 14, 15, 16, and 20 channels are all used by police and fire. They look nice and empty at 3 hours before the event, but are quite busy. And I know for a fact that the local police there do use those frequencies during the games. So it's a good idea to check with somebody in advance of showing up to an event before you start transmitting on a channel. And while they may look clear, they are certainly not if you haven't been cleared to use those.
Yeah, I mean, you had me get involved by way of a couple of other people, but
That's right.
Doing the NFL for a season in LA, I have to admit, it was one of the most fun I've had and gotten paid at the same time.
Yes. Yeah.
I enjoy football, but I enjoyed seeing all the behind the scenes. So that was really cool, but not realizing what really what was really involved with the coordination between all these different behind the scenes parts. So,
yeah, it's quite amazing. When you think about it, not only do you have police and fire who really have pre-coordinated, essentially they use channels that are already allocated, but you have the TV networks, you have radio networks that show up, local and out of state, sometimes foreign language. Sometimes you have entertainment at halftime or before the game that needs wireless equipment. The TV networks. It's really quite a cacophony, and the teams themselves may also do a lot of recording. NFL films, for example, at the NFL events. So there's a lot going on. In a typical Super Bowl, during the course of the week prior to and the day of game, we always had typically 4,000 frequencies to organize.
Just a couple.
Yeah, a few.
What would you say it was in that role of event frequency coordination? What would be your biggest challenge going into, I guess, before the event, during the event? Is there anything after the event that you'd have to worry about? Or
it's a little surprising. The first thing that happens is you have to coordinate all of the two-way radio channels and find places for extra ones. Normally, there's a band between 450 megahertz and 470 megahertz where everybody likes to transmit. But that's not really enough if you consider all of the people who want to show up and organize their teams using handheld radios. So that's number one. And typically we work with the larger rental agencies to make sure that everybody has frequencies. And they're quite efficient at using their channels because they share on a certain limited number of frequencies between everybody. So they're all banked. And then the second most challenging thing about these games is the DECT channels, the DECT channels. Unfortunately, there's only a couple of small bands. Everybody likes to use those because they work well, but there's a limit in how many users can be on at a certain time. So, for example, at the college football championships, we had issues with trying to fit everybody in. The TV networks wanted to use those channels. The stadium wanted to use those for intercom. And so did the two benches, both teams present at the college football championships wanted to use them. So that was a real problem. The other thing that comes to mind is that when you're jamming so many frequencies into a given space, you have to consider intermodulation distortion. And if you get channels beating against each other and mixing in a passive way, then they create other channels of transmission on the fly. So we have to kind of consider in 3D space how to allocate those channels so that they don't interfere with each other when they are retransmitting, when they're mixing and transmitting on other channels. And I saw a bad example, a disastrous example of intermod one time when a group showed up that probably didn't have the technical chops to do what they were doing in mixing several high output IFBs, the foldback channels that are used to listen to, and the other channels that they were using to coordinate with like the blimps and so on. They were doing all this transmission at the same time in combined channels into a antenna, and the combinations of intermod that came out of that were horrendous all across the band. We were able to solve it before game time, but that was an ugly moment. One of the I did mention DECT channels before, DECT channels that are up around 1.9 gigahertz traditionally in the United States. We have AVX microphones that show up to these, and they do no coordination. The very concept of a DECT channel is that they self-coordinate. They each communicate to each other using a fixed protocol. But the AVX Sennheiser microphones do not. They simply transmit on that band and pay no attention to who else is there. So we have to eliminate, for major events, especially like the Super Bowl, any AVX microphones. They simply don't fit in the stadium. And people bring these expensive microphones that do work very well without any DECT channels being used in their facilities, but they don't work at all at these major events. And unfortunately, unfortunately, we have to turn them back. We do warn them in advance, but not everybody listens to or heeds the warnings.
So what happens if you do run into some interference during an event? Do you like chase
Yeah,
them down or?
it depends. If it is something that is not going to interfere, if we find a channel that we can't identify, then we will try to chase them down and find out where they're coming from. Typically, this is an ENG crew, a news crew from out of town. That's an electronic news gathering. And at the LA Super Bowl, for example, we had a crew from Germany that showed up on a 600 megahertz band channel. And we ran them down within 15 minutes or so of direction finding with a spectrum analyzer and a directional antenna, and shut them down. They had not coordinated those frequencies, obviously, and they were interfering with a foreign language broadcast from the sidelines. Sometimes we have to let it go because they may not be interfering, and we don't want to interfere with anything going on the sidelines. But we can usually find somebody in a hurry if we have sufficient people and good equipment on site. I can't say that there's been a terrible disaster. We did have one game in Phoenix one time, halftime crew that came up too early. They were supposed to wait until halftime to bring up their entertainment microphones, but they felt that they needed to do this before halftime, so they were interfering with some very important microphones. And I won't say anything more, but there was a little anger in the headphones between us. Yeah.
So I guess that what you just said there. So you can have a certain time to be able to use a certain frequency, like it's a shared frequency in a sense.
Yeah, there are various ways of multiplexing. One is by space. For example, I can have a microphone going on way out in the parking lot and reuse it within the studio.
Okay.
Spatial multiplexing. There's another, by time. I can simply share a frequency by having them shut down before a game or turn on after a game or at halftime. The halftime thing is a little dicey because obviously people want to test those before they go on the air at halftime. And so that's a toughie, but if you work it out with good discipline, it can be done.
Okay. Because I mean, that makes sense. There's only so many frequencies you can use. And if you've got a really big event, everybody and their mother wants to use what limited frequencies you have.
And what's happened in the last 10 years, the TV band has become smaller. So equipment that uses so-called white space, there is really no white space in a major city. But when you're trying to reuse TV channels with weaker distant channels that are on the air, you have to be very careful. You can use ENG equipment on busy TV channels because they are generally using it at a 10 to 20 foot distance. So their signal to noise ratio is very good in using between camera and their talent that's in front of the camera. The kind of signals that go across a field, like a radio network that might have a sideline reporter, those require channels that have lower noise levels, so more distant, low power TV stations.
Okay, I see. Well, what about I know I have little, not Bluetooth, but they're kind of like Bluetooth microphones.
Yes.
They're the unlicensed.
Yes.
DJI has them. Road has
Absolutely.
them.
They're very
Yeah.
popular. Rhodey has one that's really popular amongst people who show up to these events, pre-game, pre-week, and everything. We've learned over time, we used to prohibit those
Hmm.
because they could interfere with local Wi-Fi and so on. That has changed to letting just pretty much everyone bring in as many of those as they want to, and even in large groups, say post game on the field where you have a lot of news crews taking shots with hometown favorite players and so on. Those do actually play together well. So we've begun allowing those in unlimited numbers with the simple warning that when you're tight with too many people, it may not work for you. But we've never actually heard anyone complain that it didn't work for them. So we started allowing those and just not worrying about it.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it kind of is. They do work though.
Well,
It's
nice.
kind of neat. Yep.
So if I were, let's play hypothetical real quick. If I were a new group coming in, a radio station or a TV station, coming to an event, whether it's
right,
NFL, MLB, whatever, what would be the process, and how far in advance would I need to start this process?
Typically for an NFL game, you would check in on the NFL frequency coordination web page, and you can just look it up. And that can be at the beginning of the season or several weeks in advance of a game, up to say 5 to 10 days in advance of the game. If you had to wait till the last minute, like 5 days in advance. If you're an ENG crew, that's okay. If you're a radio group, it'd be better if you did it farther in advance because, again, you need those clearer channels to work. No matter what event you are planning to attend, whether a football game, basketball game, whatever event that you're talking about, you should check in with the people who coordinate. And if you don't know, you should check in with the stadium or the people who are issuing the credentials to make sure that you're coordinating with other people. Even small events at Snapdragon Stadium here in San Diego, we ask people to check in advance so that we don't find them interfering. They'll show up here and say, wow, channel 14 UHF looks really clear. All of the stadium microphones are in channel 14 and they don't turn them on until it's time for the national anthem or some contest. And so, yes, it's going to look very clear, but we can always find room for you here. It's like that at any game, whether you're talking about the NFL in Los Angeles or New York or Phoenix or, a small event in San Diego or the Bay Area.
Or my new hometown, Denver.
Yes, or Denver, yes.
Have you ever had an audio issue that just made you upset? But don't worry, because one of the sponsors for today's video has you covered. Angry Audio offers all sorts of gadgets and gizmos, from headphone disconnectors to prevent you from ripping the headphone jack right out of the console, to mic processors and software to make your streams sound amazing. I want to focus on something specific. The Angry Audio Rave. It's their powerful yet affordable audio console built for radio stations just like yours. The Rave has 8 stereo line inputs, up to 4 microphone inputs, 2 output mix buses, 2 mix minus outputs, a monitor feed for your control room, and so much more. The Rave is made of anodized aluminum, silky smooth faders, and tally outputs for your on-air light. Get major market quality at small market prices. Learn more at angryaudio.com. Thank you, Angry Audio, for sponsoring this video.
So, what in your opinion, like what threshold size of an event should, we start thinking about coordination between frequencies? I mean, obviously for
Yeah.
pro level sports and things like that.
Yes. Yeah. That's a good question.
Sports?
Right. I would say any major collegiate or professional event, you should expect some frequency coordination. That said, there are stadiums where they may have a set of instructions there that tell you what to expect and where you can use your microphones in the spectrum available. That may be some signage at the broadcast service panels that you find at the stadium, or just checking in advance with the stadium personnel. They may tell you that there's some web page or advice sheet that they can use in lieu of frequency coordination. Here in San Diego, we do have professional frequency coordination, even for small events, but not all cities are the same.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, I guess anytime you would be having a lot of people in the same area,
yes,
using wireless devices. Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. Concerts seem to be a whole different matter. Usually what happens is because the concert is really led by the traveling concert team, they have priority at that concert venue, and often they don't coordinate with anyone, and we're kind of hands off. That happens more often than not at almost all venues. They want to do their own coordination, and whether that ignores the needs of local police and fire, I don't know.
Gotcha. Well, I know we had talked about Bluetooth microphones or those little unlicensed microphones.
Yeah.
I guess those would be great for, YouTube, small news, things like that. But do you see the future, or where do you see the future of like wireless microphones or wireless communications at an event? Where do you see that going?
The professionals are still using like TV networks and so on, are trying to stay away from everyone else. So they are trying to use the future, the sort of forward-looking systems that use bands that are sort of exotic. The 900 megahertz bands, from 941 to 958, are the current popular choice for those kind of people. Also licensing some of the band at 1.4 to 1.5 gigahertz is popular these days. There's still a lot of use of UHF TV channels, but you have to be careful because each city has its kind of own band to use. So it's better if you're buying new devices to use devices that are good all through the band, like from 470 megahertz all the way up to 605, 608. And then there are some small bands up in 600 megahertz that are also nice to use. But again, those can fill up by the higher priority users, the TV networks and the stadium. So if I were buying new equipment, I would want that flexibility through the UHF TV band and the 950 megahertz band. Those two would be good buys. You can fit a lot of people still in those bands, and so that's what I would tell people. Now, that said, some people are going to VHF, and there are a lot of VHF channels that are open, and that's not a terrible way to go. I had a funny thing happen at a Super Bowl event a few years ago where we had a station from a medium-sized market show up with some let's say, antique electrosonics equipment, I'm sure they were at least 30 years old, but they worked perfectly fine. And they were fixed frequency. They were on a crystal. And so they couldn't change frequencies at all. But because they were using some unused VHF channels, we let them use what they had because they avoided everyone else. So, what goes around comes around. And some of the VHF channels are a good choice as well. Now, I wouldn't necessarily advise that for a radio network unless you're using it for reception on the field. They use a lot of VHF IFB units where they're receiving on the field. They have a strong transmitter in the radio booth and then a weak receiver. So that's a good place to use VHF. For VHF for TV crews, that's not such a terrible idea because they generally do that at short distance and don't need large antennas on the microphones. So that's another direction to go in. Stay away from everybody else.
Yeah. I guess, like you said, well, you didn't say this exactly, but you kind of said what's old is new and,
Yeah. VHF is really highly desirable right now for IFB and those kind of things.
Huh. I thought, the industry had just kind of walked away from VHF, but I guess not.
Yeah. Yeah, it's come back.
How funny. I guess, well, in one case, the folks that had those old transmitters, but technology can make it a little bit better, I guess.
Yeah, it's cyclical.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know. There's also one of the things that's happening right now. They're doing some research into systems that multiplex across an entire TV channel. Shure and Sennheiser are playing with this right now. And that may be the future, although it's hard to share between different parties when you do that. So a TV network could take up an entire TV channel, but where does that leave everyone else?
Right.
So I think it is something that you're going to see at major events. Because they can put a lot of microphones on there and they don't have to worry about, because it's digital and uses the entire band, they don't have to worry about intermod. So you can really jam a lot of microphones there. On the other hand, again, they don't share between different parties.
So I guess kind of like a master antenna system, if you will, for users.
Yes, very much so.
Interesting. All right. Last couple of questions. So, this channel has a lot of people who are, just coming into it, who are new to broadcasting, or they're very IT heavy and not so much RF knowledgeable.
Yeah.
All the way to people who have been doing, tubes, in legacy facilities. So for the folks who are more on the veteran side, do you have any suggestions or recommendations for them as they come into a frequency coordinated event?
Yeah. One thing that we always tell users in radio booths, for example, who have, variable experience, is use directional antennas. I highly recommend using the Shure and other log periodic directional antennas to get their signals to and from the booth, whether they're transmitting or receiving. A whip antenna behind a rack is not going to make it to the field in good shape. That signal is going to be too weak by the time it gets down there. And we've heard complaints about this very problem. We arrive in the radio booth only to find that they really have no efficient way to get a signal from the field when they're just using whip antennas at the back of their equipment. Doesn't work. You need a little gain. at that distance. You certainly don't for an ENG crew on the field. That's one thing. Another is when you're trying. There's a problem at certain locations around the country. Cities like Miami and Los Angeles come to mind, where when you're aiming an antenna, you may be aiming at another city and receive that city at a great distance. I had a CBS crew show up in Los Angeles at the old soccer stadium in advance of a Chargers game one time. They were trying to receive their field microphones from the bird's nest, the crow's nest location above the stadium. And it was a small crew, so they didn't have a lot of people to help set up. They should have had this equipment on the field where they use the stadium itself as a shield from outside signals. But they were receiving substantial interference on TV channels that were not used in Los Angeles. But when I showed up there and saw what the issue was, it was very clear to me what they were receiving were the two San Diego channels. They just happened to be coming in via tropospheric reception that day, and they were getting really good signals from the two TV stations occupying channels 17 and 19 here in San Diego. So even though it's over 100 miles away, it was interfering with their signals from 100 yards away. We asked them to put their equipment down on the field. They were able to aim away, use a different polarization, vertical versus horizontal. So they were able to clear up the problem. But it is an issue at some cities that are coastal.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess that's something you don't really think about.
No.
When you get down to events like that. I mean, I know that stuff that I've talked about many different times, I think I've talked about it here on the channel, but I've talked about it with other engineers is, when you're doing STL shots and you have that tropospheric ducting, or when you have lower power radio stations and you're getting interference from outside of the area.
Yeah.
But you don't ever think about it with wireless microphones and things like that.
I was supervising the Fox affiliate here in San Diego, and we had 7 gigahertz equipment on Mount San Miguel. And when we would aim toward downtown to pick up a live shot from our field there, but before they went on the air, we could definitely see Los Angeles's full-time broadcasts with one of the affiliates up there. This is over a distance of 120 miles. So it is something that carries quite well. At another time, we had a microwave crew for a fire up in Orange County, and we were able to receive them quite well here in San Diego. Perfect, solid transmission across the water, and no problem whatsoever.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yep.
Well, okay. Now, the last thing I really want to touch on, and, I found, so let me back up a little bit. When I was working for you, doing the NFL event frequency coordination, I thought it was amazing. It was fascinating, but it's such a small group of people.
Yeah.
And there's only so many slots available in each market. So how did you get involved in this, and when? Wow.
So I've been doing RF work since I was literally a teenager. I started as a ham when I was 15, learning tube theory. And I continued with it in television from the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. I just happened to run into the NFL coordinating supervisor at a meeting in Denver in 2012, and he mentioned that he was looking for a coordinator for San Diego, and that's how I got my start. I already had a great deal of RF experience, so it was a pretty good fit for both of us. I had to learn the software, and I had to learn more about exactly what goes into event frequency coordination rather than trying to transmit from an ENG crew or for broadcast. But it wasn't a very difficult transition. They had good software in the NFL. And then from there, I branched out into, the same people who show up at the NFL games also do work for USC, UCLA, and San Diego State and so on. So I was able to kind of spread my wings and do work for them on an as-needed basis, and similarly for Major League Baseball events and so on. So it's a tremendously fun gig. When you're doing a Super Bowl, you're working with a large team. At the last event that I helped supervise, we had 17 frequency coordinators from all over the country. And these guys are just awesome. You learn so much from them. And also the kind of people who you get at the Super Bowl tend to be natural leaders and so on. So you don't have to be very specific about your instructions for what they need to do in a day. And sometimes they can improve the process themselves without any further direction. Also, they're just fun as heck to go out to dinner with.
Is there a difference between NFL frequency coordination, MLB, basketball, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Is there a major difference, or is everything kind of the same?
No, the NFL coordination has they put a little money into it so that people who are interested in attending an event can actually get, I should say, they can submit a list of their equipment, and it's like step by step walks you through it online. Whereas most other events are informally coordinated with an email saying what equipment you have, and you have a little bit back and forth. You do have different people using different software, but the NFL has a very formal system, and it works quite well. It's been simplified over time, so it takes care of itself. So I guess that's the main differences in just how you do it. And of course, there's a lot more equipment at an NFL event, so it almost requires that kind of treatment, whereas the other events take less. But Major League Baseball and so on, they do have a lot of at a World Series event, there's a lot of usage, and we have a small team of like 3 or 4 people who will attend those and take care of everybody. But they use their own software, so that's a less formal system. You just you submit a list and hope for the best.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for coming along
Sure.
and chatting about this, and helping my audience here kind of understand this weird little hidden part of events and broadcasting that, you don't really think about it until you run into a problem.
Yeah, it seems a little simpler to just find a spot and occupy that, but it just isn't that easy, because signals are coming and going, and it really has to be a formal process.
Yeah.
At least at major events. Smaller events, they may have a list of frequencies they want you to use in given bands, but larger events, not so much.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you for coming and chatting about this. And I appreciate you for, giving me a shot and letting me have an experience of a lifetime for a season.
Yeah, that was fun. The food's
But
great too.
oh, well, you know, the food was great. I mean, you know, for anybody who's watching this who has done event frequency coordination for NFL, they do feed you well. They
Yeah.
feed you really well.
It's really it's the teams. So
True.
every stadium is a different experience. San Diego was not so generous, but
Okay.
Los Angeles is fabulous.
Well, you have two teams, you know, paying into it, I guess, in a way.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's a different different kind of event now.
Well, cool. Any last words or thoughts about this, or?
I don't so much. If you're interested in frequency coordination, you know, there are people out there who are looking for the next generation of coordinators. The NFL, believe it or not, would like to have a list of people who are interested when other people retire. You know, that it has been traditionally a game of old men, old white men, and fortunately, it's getting more diverse, and we do have a younger generation that's coming on board, and it's fun to watch, and it's fun to teach.
Thank you again for being here. Thank you for being a part of this channel. I don't need my headphones now, so I can take them off. And thank you again to you, Gary, for being on this video and talking to us about frequency coordination. If you're still here watching this, take a moment, watch some of the other videos, learn about some transmitter sites, learn about satellites. That's kind of an interesting thing right now. You know, maybe get a tour of some studio sites. Either way, watch some of the other videos while you're here. Comment down below. And until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and keep learning.